Hey guys, so it's been like a week. I've had a lot of stuff going on, so I haven't been able to make videos currently, and I moved a bunch of stuff around. I got sick. I've been going out weekly, spending time with somebody that I used to help, and it's been cold. It's the middle of the winter, so I did get a cold, and so I nurtured that back, and then cleaned and organized my house again. Took care of myself, nurtured myself, and so I'm back. This video, I thought during all this stuff that went on, I've spent a lot of time just things will come to me about like, what should you speak about next? Maybe some of the stuff that you are going through, maybe some of the stuff that, comes to your mind that you're dealing with on this journey that you've been through. And that's what I've been trying to do. But some of that, so lately it had been a lot of like trust in myself. And so I dyed my hair red again. I went through this whole thing about how my red hair was some negative thing against me because it had been the last several years that I'd been speaking up on defending myself, on injustices that I saw, working with the homeless population, things that I didn't think were fair in my own personal life and in lives of people around me. And then people would kind of say, "Oh, it's because you're a ginger, or it's because your fiery personality is because of your hair." And I'd think like, no, like my hair is not even naturally red. But I had discovered in studying astrology that my north node is Scorpio. And for those of you who have studied astrology, your north node is what you're supposed to be. Your south node is like the way that you were raised and things to let go of. And your north node is things to work on and stuff. And Scorpio is about uncovering the deeper meanings of things and calling out the truth, calling out BS on things. And I had done this more and more because I've been silenced a lot during my life. And so a lot of the silence created this distrust in myself. Like, I, people say, you're not speaking right. You're not acting right. You're not doing this right. And I would do this, trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be all the time. And then it just built up this anger within me, probably more anger towards myself for, thinking that I had to make myself small in order to make other people feel better. And so the past few days, I thought about some of the stuff that I've been through in the last several months since I had an accident and how that threw me off course again of like not trusting myself. Because I had been through so much stuff in the past several years that I was a person who would weigh pros and cons with decisions. I'd think hard about decisions before I made them and then move ahead. And then if they ended up being like negative outcomes for me, then that would make me not trust myself and not trust my decisions. But then, it's also like when we trust other people, because it's our decision to trust them. And then when we trust somebody and they let us down, they hurt us, or they prove to us differently than what we trusted, then I think it kind of does this double edge to you. It's like a betrayal wound where, not only are you disappointed or hurt by the person or the job or, the relationship, whatever you put your trust in, but then you lose faith in yourself. You lose trust in yourself. You get mad at yourself or disappointed in yourself because you think, like, man, I trusted that was, putting my trust in that other person was the right decision. So not only am I hurt by them, I'm hurt by myself. And I went through this for a long time. And I mean, when I had my accident, I had just started venturing out again into the city where I live, trying to go places by myself, meet people, be more social, because for so long I had done just work and back home. And then the relationship that I had, he stopped wanting to take me to places. And so I had not been social. All of the family and friends that I had through him, when it was over, those all got taken away from me. And so I became very isolated. And so I just started venturing out again. And I had made the decision to quit my job, and that I was going to restructure things and help out people the way I wanted to. And then the accident happened, and it sent me into this, was this the wrong decision? Like I trusted myself that this was right. And then after my accident, I called that person that I'd been in a relationship with that said that they would help me no matter what, and put my trust in them again. And they said, I'll be here until you don't need me anymore, for as long as you need me to take you places, to help you out. And then on my birthday, they fought with me and ignored me and left again the day after. And once again, I thought, like, was that the wrong decision to call that person? Like, I trusted them again. And it just sent me into this mind frame of like, can I trust myself? Can I just trust that decisions are right? And then I dealt with mechanics that I kept calling to try to come look at my car in my driveway to see if it was even fixable or how much it would cost if it was. And then those people didn't show up, or, and it kept compounding this feeling inside of me of like, can you trust yourself? Because you keep thinking, this is the right decision, and giving people benefits of the doubt for the stuff they're going through, and maybe they're busy or maybe they're dealing with stuff. And in the end, it just taught me like, you have to learn to trust yourself while still sticking up for yourself and maintaining those boundaries and defending yourself, and knowing that in your mind you made the right decision, but you can't control what other people do, and you can't control any other things other than yourself. So I started trusting myself more, and trusting like it's okay for me to stick up for myself, to say that I deserve better than this. It's okay for me to tell mechanics that I've paid consult fees to, that it's not okay that I paid you a month ago and then you still have not even given me a quote, or, you still have not even talked about parts or anything. And it kind of gave me my power back in trusting in myself. And part of that was paying attention to my body. And I would say, like, if for anybody that's healing through traumas that have happened, whether it's a physical trauma like, an accident, or emotional trauma from relationships, psychological trauma from relationships, that the first thing is about, paying attention to your body. And for me, I had neglected my body so much, where I had just been working so much, not eating, not being able to sleep because I was just worried about everything all the time. Like I just ate all the time. And then I had a relationship that I would tell the person, like, I'm in physical pain. I'm in emotional pain. Seems like, I'm not important. I seem invisible in my job. I seem invisible in this household. I'm only seen whenever I complain, and then I'm shamed about complaining, and it just kept doing this physical trauma to me, to where it brought me to not feeling safe within my own body, not feeling safe about my decisions, not feeling safe to do things on my own, to make decisions for myself. And so I'd spent a lot of time. Well, I started switching stuff into positive mindsets. And I made other videos about this that you're welcome to check out in my playlist. I've kind of put different things under there. Some of the things overlap because sometimes, you can go from feeling like you're not enough to feeling like you're too much, to feeling like you're invisible, to feeling like you're the victim, to feeling like you're the villain, changing all the time the way that you're feeling. And that was part of it too, was recognizing my feelings and not letting somebody else dictate how I was feeling. Because I would have, people label me and tell me, what you're feeling is not okay, to where it was like, just don't feel ignored. Just don't feel sad. Just don't feel, and I'd go, it's not that simple. So it was a lot of inner reflection. And so one thing I did do after I started feeling better, I took myself out the other night to have dinner and to go to a concert. And I noticed like the difference in me than had been even a couple years ago. Because when my relationship fell apart and the person who said that they'd always be there for me left, I, started taking myself places, going out, venturing out, doing the things that I'm doing again. And I was terrified. I was terrified all the time that something would happen to me. I tell people all the time, like, I'm just talking from my perspective and of the feminine in me. But, sometimes when you're trying to explain to people who feel tough on the outside, or even, I could say men, but there's a lot of, tough women out there too. But you're trying to explain to them, like, sometimes it's scary out there. And sometimes us women can feel like targets, because people might think that we're weak. We are physically made differently. And I'd always had people say like that I'm pretty tough. But I would tell them like, yeah, I've had to act tough my whole life. I was raised where weakness was seen as a negative. Like you act tough. You don't ask for help. Like, and so I would try to explain to people, like, just because I can go and do everything by myself doesn't mean that I want to. And, sometimes I'd like to have somebody else there, or sometimes, if somebody else is there, I'd like to know that I'm protected in case anything happens. And this is where I saw, like, a lot of times, I guess I would put my trust in whoever I was with to look out for me. And then when that person wasn't looking out for me, I would feel terrified. Well, I had went to a game a couple years ago, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever had the same feeling, but I I drove myself there, and I had not like taken myself to an NFL game by myself. So I was like, I don't know how soon I'm supposed to get there. What if I get lost? I'm going to be frazzled dealing with traffic anyway because of these crazy drivers. And, so I planned out, I got there in advance, I got my parking, and I got there so early that I went in the gates, and my seat was like way up high. And I don't know if you guys have had that feeling, but I knew in my mind Like, I'm not going to fall over and fall down on the field. But like physically, my body felt like, because the stadium was almost empty, something about the perception was it was so far up that I felt like if I move and stand up, I'm going to fall and I'm just going to fall into the field. And I felt stupid for feeling that way. But I really had to sit there and tell myself, like, it's okay. You know, realistically, you're not going to fall all the way down on the field. But it was terrifying. And then, I enjoyed once the stadium starts filling up. I don't know if it's a perception thing, but, I felt more comfortable. And, um, and then coming back, it was really late at night and I had to work the next day, or I would have just stayed in that town. But it was really late at night and I just thought, like, man, if a deer jumps out and hits my car, if my car goes off the road, will anybody know? Like, I don't have anybody waiting at home to call me, you know, to say, are you okay? Or I didn't have anybody telling me, call me when you get home to make sure that you made it safe, which I would always tell people whenever they would travel somewhere. And so it was just this fear-based mindset that I got into. I got into so much fear-based about, like, what if somebody breaks into my house and there's nobody here to protect me other than me? What would I do? And so then part of that was, trying to teach my body, like, you're safe. You're safe in the world. You can't control everything around you. You can only control so many things. But you can make sure that you put yourself in safe places and that you're safe about it, and that your decisions are okay. And if by chance things happen, there's all you can do is deal with it at the time and try to, get yourself out of that fear-based thing. And so the other night I decided, like, yeah, you know what? I said I've been walking around so much that I got into way better shape. And I was like, remember you said you got some awesome legs. So, I put on a dress and I saw this concert that I wanted to go to. And I taught myself how to use Uber and Lyft and all of that, and had somebody pick me up and went to this concert and sat there and, listened to the music, and then walked downtown to where I knew that I could go eat, and, just felt so much safer in my skin. And it was really about, learning to trust myself and know that, the decisions that I make, sometimes they're not going to be the right ones all the time. Sometimes I can, I've tried to do the thing about, like, teaching myself lessons from whatever happens in life. And so when the accident happened and then I couldn't get a mechanic to work on my car, to even show up to help out. And I didn't trust the ones in this town because they'd already treated me poorly. And, I tried to use it as, well, maybe I need to rest more. Maybe I need to sleep more. Maybe my plan was take a month off and then get back out there and help people in the ways that I can without being tied to any agency. And then I thought, well, maybe the universe or the powers that be or the spirit is telling me that I need to take more time than a month off, because I'd been through a lot. I'd been through, in the years that I lived here, I'd been through a battle with my ex involving my children where it was just character assassination. And that was something I trusted when I made the decision to let my daughter go live with him, that what he said was correct, but he just used it just to attack me and try to assassinate my character. I'd been through stuff with work where, I'd ask for help and I'd ask for things, to help the population and to help me to help them. And there was a lot of just being labeled and judged for, she's losing it again. She's super emotional again. And I would try to tell people like, I'm out there, I'm seeing it. I'm around this population. I'm feeling the pain when they're reacting to things. I see the way they're treated. It's vicarious trauma. There's that whole saying about you can't walk through water without getting wet. And I'd watched videos on it and I'd, said to the hires up, like, this is what I'm experiencing. Can I get some help? I tried to use employee assistance programs. I tried to go to therapists. I was just like, I need some help. I'd been through a relationship that I thought, this was my person and believed when they said, I'll be here. You'll never feel alone again. You'll never be alone again. That I'd helped out with their house, their physical appearance, their bills, their family stuff, their stuff, and then in the end, when I put up boundaries, they just exited and then they just continued this loop for years of I want you, I don't want you, I want you, I don't want you, of where it just became this compounding thing of, everybody would just rather, me be quiet, me change myself to please everybody. And sorry, you guys, it's the cat. He just keeps moving around and moving around. He really likes this chair. I think he thinks it's his now. But I had said, I found a notebook where I had written down a lot of things. And one thing was about, and I had told like former clients in the population, like, I'm going to start a channel. I'm going to bring awareness to not only the homeless population, but like what people go through that feel in these ways. It's hard to trust somebody when you don't trust yourself because every time you've put trust in somebody, they've let you down or they've lied to you or they've not shown up. This is where I would all the time relate it to, the population that I help. They help me so much because I always said, like, before I moved here, I told the person that I moved here to be with, I want to get some sort of a job, even if it's a volunteer thing, to help people who have no help, who have family that have turned their backs on them, who have, fair weather friends, who, have called all the resources and seem like there's no help because that's the position that I was in. That's the position that I'd been in so many times in my life as a single parent. So many times of thinking that I had friends and then they were there for the good times and then, and for me to help them. And then when I needed help, they weren't there. And so this job just seemed to come out of the blue. And I didn't even know it was for the homeless population or how much, it would involve whenever I started. But I would meet people that said, why should I trust you? Because other people have let me down. I called family, I called friends, or, I was with this person and they were just around while I had money and then they left. And I would say, yeah, I know. I know how that feels. I know, but I'm not like those people. If I say I'm going to show up, I'm going to show up. If I haven't shown up, there's something has happened to me, but and and telling people like I'm not going to do it for you, but I will be here to assist or to help guide because if you put it all on me, then you miss out on that yay you, because I would have clients that would say, this is all because of you. And I would say, no, you did this for you. You remember it was you. I was just here. I just helped because I've been there before. But also, if it was put on me, then people might blame me. And I would say, no, this is not all me. I'm not going to do it for you, but I will assist. And so I built up trust. It helped me build up trust in myself, and it helped me build up trust within the population, because then I would have other clients bring me people and say, this person helped me. She can help you. Nobody else helped me. I reached out to these people, or, she's a problem solver, or she figured out something. And I didn't even have to work for referrals through other agencies. I just had people bringing me people, to where it got to that point where I said, like, I wish there was another me, but there isn't. So can I get some extra help out here? Because there's so many people that need help, but we need people to be trustworthy. Because when your trust has been violated and taken advantage of by people, when you put your trust in them and they let you down, it's hard for you to trust yourself, because you just keep replaying oh, stupid me, I should have known better. Or, why did I trust that person again? They kept doing the same thing. And that betrayal wound, like, just cuts so deep, that because it's you against you. It's not only feeling like it's them against you, but then it's like you against you. And so I had made other videos, and I would tell clients, forgive yourself. You didn't know any better at the time. Or maybe you knew better, but you thought, that person might change, or that thing might change. You let your boundaries down again. And sometimes, we learn the hard ways. Sometimes it takes a lot I know my parents used to joke about, like, you always learn the hard way. And a lot of that would be because I would try to put myself in other people's shoes. And then I'd think, well, maybe this time because they were like this, or maybe this, and make a million bazillion excuses for everybody under the sun. Because if I had complained, then I would get labeled. I think our society does that a lot. About, like, oh, that person's a Karen, or that person's a complainer. And I'd be like, no, it's not wrong for me to complain, that what you said isn't true. Or, the price you advertise is not the price you charged me. It's like society, I think, a lot of times has convinced people that it's wrong for people to complain. It's wrong for people to defend themselves, on what is just, what is fair, what is true. And I've learned, the hard way a lot of times, like, life is not fair. Life is just life. But it's also what you make of it. So I had, going out the other night, it taught me, like, it's okay. You can make decisions that, you can trust yourself, that you know how to do these things. It's just the circumstances that you were in and the people that you surrounded yourself with convinced you to not trust yourself. Because every time you made a decision, putting your trust in them, they just kept changing the story, or deflecting, or ignoring you, or labeling you as something. And I had just made myself so small for the longest time. Well, everybody would just rather me be quiet. Everybody would just rather me just sit in my room and, pretend like there's not a world going on out there. And so I thought maybe this might help some people out there, learning to trust yourself, learning to, like I said, one of the first things was paying attention to my body. Like, how do things make me feel? Does this feel correct to me? Do I feel safe enough to go out by myself? Would that be a safe thing? Um, who am I going to surround myself with? And then teaching myself, like, no, your words are okay to say. You know, um, just because you say something that another person, you know, takes offense to because it's on them, because it became this thing of like, wherever I complained, whether in work or relationships, it became well, that hurt my feelings that you complained, or we don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear that other people aren't doing their jobs because that makes us look bad. And I would be like, well, sorry. I'm just telling the truth. I keep trying to tell the truth. Sorry if sometimes the truth hurts. And I know I've said this in previous videos of like, sometimes the truth is wonderful and sometimes it's not. It's just the truth, And some people, I think, like, what is that? There's that movie. I can't even think of the movie right now. My memory with like movies and actors is horrible, but it's like, you can't handle the truth. Like, that's a lot of times how I would feel telling people, like, so you're asking me to tell you what the problem is? You're asking me to tell you what the truth is. The truth is, other workers aren't doing their jobs. The truth is, we have no avenues to help this population. In relationships, the truth is, you're not helping me. The truth is, you haven't spoken to me in a week. So don't tell me that you're here and in this relationship if you haven't helped me out with anything, you haven't monetarily helped, you haven't spoken to me, you haven't done anything. The truth is, you're not here. Like, maybe your physical body is, but you're not in this at all. Sorry if the truth hurts, but I'm not going to make myself small and quiet in order to make somebody feel better. And dealing with the stuff I dealt in the past several months. It was starting with my accident, is sticking up for myself and telling people, the truth is, you're treating me horribly on my birthday. Like, this is my day. Maybe make it about me and not you. The truth is, your mechanic, I called you a month ago. And you said you lost my number, and then I got back in touch with you. Then you said you'd give me a quote the next day. Then a week went by. I texted you, no answer. The truth is, you're acting unprofessionally. If you want business, this is not how you go about. So I will just take my money elsewhere and get somebody else that cares about their reputation, cares about their character, their worth of their job. And a lot of this, helped me in my character development, learning to trust myself of, I don't need to have a relationship to have somebody take me somewhere. Somebody just made me feel like that. I don't need to have a cheer section cheering me on when I know my self-worth, when I know I can do things. I don't need somebody to, wait to figure out some electronic something. Like, I have a couple people I can ask, but if they don't know, I can YouTube it. I can figure out things, telling myself I can learn stuff. And once I got out of that fear-based mindset of thinking I can't trust myself, the worst is going to happen, the catastrophizing thoughts that I had, because so many of the worst things had happened that I thought never would. Then it's almost like I became that person to myself that my clients, that I was to my clients, of, of saying, you can do stuff, forgive yourself for trusting in places or people that let you down, but learn from it, learn different avenues. Don't let somebody else's treatment of you keep you from being the best version of you, because all you can do is try to learn and improve it to be better for the next thing, the next time. So I dyed my hair back and said, you know what? If people say, oh, well, your temper, your fiery personality, your attitude is because your hair, I'll be like, whatever. I used to joke, like, I just dyed it, I guess, to match my personality, I've always been this way. Sorry if I speak up and say stuff that people don't want to hear, because I'm that person who, I'm like, I'm going to tell you the things that will probably make you feel wonderful. But I'm also going to point out the other things too. If it's affecting me, then I'm also going to tell you the things you probably don't want to hear. Because I'm trying to be honest. I'm not trying to be like everybody else and tell you that everything's great if it's not. I'm not going to be the worker that just says, yeah, sure, we're doing great, when I see, hundreds of people coming up to me saying, my worker didn't show up, or I can't get an appointment for months and months, while they're enduring trauma on the streets and outside. And, so I hope this helps. And if you like this video, like it, or go back and, look at some of the other ones that I have in there. Like I said, I'm going to keep revamping. Part of that was putting up that artwork behind me where I said, like, that has to do with the name of my channel. Is I always said I became fascinated with octopus, and I was like, octopus are so intelligent. They live deep in the ocean. They're always figuring out puzzles. But that's where they say our emotions are, in the ocean. An octopus can camouflage, when they think that they're prey. And then people might think they're a lionfish, but they're not. They're just an octopus disguised that way because they're afraid they're going to get attacked. And then I would say, people would label me like Ursula. You're like the sea witch, and I'm like, no, if you look back on the origins of octopus, like, they got a bad rap. They got a bad name, mostly because of Disney. And then I would say, like that phoenix up there, that was a metal piece that I got a while ago. And I said that in another video. It's got a woman inside of it. And I would always say, like, I feel like when stuff's happening, when, like, traumatic events, catastrophes are happening, like, I physically feel like my body's on fire. And I would try to explain to people, like, it physically hurts me to have somebody touch me because I feel like I'm burning on fire. And I learned to throw water on my face and try to do some deep breathing and, calm myself down and tell people, like, stay away for just a bit. I don't want to be touched or hugged, or, so then, and then I guess it was watching Harry Potter and, studying about Phoenix, that I was like, Phoenix burned to the ground to rise again. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with our character development, is we burn down and rise again. And it's just the burning down that, feels like the end of the world. And so I put that up, and in my name on my channel, I had capitalized the SWITCH. And I know people probably just see the witch, but it was supposed to say switch. Switching the mindset from negative to positive. paying attention to the way that things make me physically feel, the way things emotionally make me feel, making myself feel safe inside of my body, speaking out for things that don't make me feel that way, standing up for myself and knowing that it's okay, that I'm not this villain, that sometimes I do come across villainous. Sometimes I'm at the end of my wits and I do yell and I do lash out. And then I would say to people like, this is not how I started. And I had one person tell me, it doesn't matter how you start, it's how you end. And I would always say, like, no, it always matters where you start. The start is where it starts, you know? And reteaching myself, like, no, you did talk first. You did try to communicate to your job, to people around you. You try to communicate very well. You're a good communicator. You're very descriptive. You use every single avenue that you can. You write it, you do whatever. The end of it is when you yell, but for so long I thought, like, that's only when then people say, now we see you and now you're villainous, and then that would keep me down and keep me in this, do I trust myself to speak out? Do I trust myself that it's okay to defend myself? Do I trust myself that it's okay to complain? And just reteaching myself that. So I hope this helps. I know a lot of my videos sometimes are long-winded and I repeat myself, and sometimes it's like I've got an idea and then other things come, and I know sometimes I do say the same things, but that's the way, like, my mind works. And maybe I thought maybe other people's do, because I know with my clients, a lot of times we would talk about the same stuff. We would repeat it over and over again. Every appointment, it would be like, remember, you are not the whatever other people labeled you at. Remember, the good in you. Remember, the lessons you've learned. Because a lot of times trauma just throws you into catastrophizing and fearful and all that. So if you stayed this long, I appreciate it. And I hope everybody's having a good day, and I hope this helps. Talk to you soon. Bye.